This is the special Newsy Pooloozi space capsule. Yes, we're traveling to the stars with over half an hour's worth of space news. Over here! Hey, listen up! Newsy Pooloozi. Hello, I'm Leela Shivshankar Prickett, and for the month of July, we have a very special bit of programming we're doing.
That's right. I'm Lindy Prickett, Leela's sidekick and Newsy Pooloozi producer.
And my mama.
Yes, that too. So we realize we do a lot of news stories about the same topics. So we're going to enter into capsule mode this month, as in encapsulate, to put stories of a similar topic together into a single place, or single episode, or capsule.
One is about a subject we love. Yes, we're talking space stories.
We have tons of space news and background stories all about the galaxy.
So we're gonna put them all in one single place. A space capsule. Get it?
Which we're doing this week.
But we've also done quite a lot of stories about things we don't necessarily love, but that we have
let's say a fearful fascination with.
Yeah, like creepy crawlies. Why do we do so many stories about bugs, spiders, lizards, and snakes? Yick!
Like I say, sometimes we're fascinated by the things that scare us the most.
Or freak us out!
Yes, that would be the other topic we've covered a lot on Newsy Pooloozi.
Poo! Yup, you heard me right. We cover a lot of poo news. Or excrement, if you prefer.
So we'll be putting together a poo capsule too for later this month.
Stinky.
So let's dive deep into each one of these categories.
This week we have the space capsule. Me. Sit back and buckle up. Yep, this is not a joke, but it's also not a woman or a man, but a mannequin, of course. Dressed in an astronaut suit and seated inside a red Tesla Roadster. It's been cruising across the Milky Way since being blasted into space almost 2 years ago. Starman's snazzy vehicle actually belonged to Elon Musk, the founder of SpaceX and Tesla, before it was repurposed for greater things. It's traveled nearly 1.3 billion miles. Well, now Starman is near Mars, but that's not the only weird thing in space. We've put mannequins, astronauts, and even chimpanzees into orbit, but that's nothing compared to the latest space traveler. The Chicken Nugget, reaching heights more than 110,000 feet above Earth. How did it get there, you ask? Oh no, not a rocket, but a balloon. No, not any ordinary birthday balloon. It was filled with hydrogen that's lighter than air. So it could carry the little nugget up, complete with satellite tracking and the camera. Really, even chicken nuggets are obsessed with selfies. And what scientific endeavor prompted this hour-long cosmic journey, you may ask? A 50th anniversary of a supermarket chain. I guess it was a birthday balloon after all. From space to sound, NASA's new project turns up the volume on space's most extreme happenings. Did you know that you can't hear a peep in space? Or an explosion, for that matter.
Yeah, space is a vacuum. It has no air, and without air, no sound. Because what we call sound is actually vibrations in the air. Get it?
Yes, but thanks to NASA's new data sonification project, we can get a sense of the sound in space.
Researchers from NASA's Chandra X-ray Center have taken 3 iconic events from their archives and translated different frequencies of light into different pitches of sound. Like this Crab Nebula.
That's a remnant of a supernova powered by a windy neutron star. It's a bit out there, get it?
Yes, thank you. I get it.
But you have to admit, it's super cool.
It really is. We'll put a link to it on our Facebook page so you can see and hear the whole thing for yourself. Step right up, step right up. Get your ticket to space.
Oh yeah, space tourism is here, ladies and gentlemen. And thanks to the generosity of a young American billionaire, a few ordinary citizens, in other words, people who aren't astronauts or super rich, are getting the chance to go into the cosmos.
Jared Isaacman is the 37-year-old founder and chief executive of a company called Shift for Payments. He's chartering a rocket and spacecraft from SpaceX for a 3 to 4 day trip to space and is giving away the seats. One to a health worker from St. Jude's Cancer Hospital, which treats children for free.
And the other ticket will be raffled off to someone at random, but I bet you have to be at least 18 though.
And a U.S. citizen. While the fourth ticket will go to the winner of an entrepreneur competition.
Entre what?
An entrepreneur is someone who creates a new business, like Jared Isaacman. And just last week, SpaceX, which was started by entrepreneur Elon Musk, announced that it would be working with Axiom, another private space firm, to take 3 private citizens up for an 8-day stay on the International Space Station sometime next year.
OMG, can we go, Mama? Please, please, please.
Yeah, that's for billionaires only, I'm afraid. The ticket up cost a cool $55 million. Round trip, though. Over the last 20 years, several wealthy private citizens have flown to the space station before. The first was American billionaire Dennis Tito, but always on the Russian Suez craft because NASA didn't allow such trips until recently.
Well, there is another way they can get to space.
Oh, you're trained to be an astronaut, right?
Yes, ma'am. But in the meantime, what about the Space Hero reality TV show?
Yes, that's right. This is in partnership with Axiom Space, which is scouring the Earth for contestants to take part in the reality TV show that aims to take one lucky winner into the final frontier after an extensive training and challenges to test their physical, mental, and emotional strength, of course.
Again, though, I'm probably too young.
Yes, you probably are. But all this really, truly marks the dawn of a new era. Once upon a time, flying on an airplane was something only the super rich could do. And look now. And by the way, Axiom also says it's developing a space station of its own, one that NASA actually hopes may one day replace the International Space Station, which has been up in space for 22 years.
Whoa, maybe that's the one I'll get to visit then.
Maybe so. The entry, descent, and landing of a rover on the planet Mars has been called by astronauts 7 minutes of terror, and now there's a video and audio to prove it.
The navigation has confirmed that the parachute has deployed, and we are seeing significant deceleration.
Surprisingly, the footage wasn't captured by some special astrophysics camera, but an ordinary action camera, which an athlete might put in a race car or on a skateboard to record their dazzling maneuvers.
This time, the dazzle was out of the world. Capturing the moment, the biggest supersonic parachute ever sent into space opens up.
And then the swirl of Martian dust and grit being kicked up as the vehicle is lowered by its rocket backpack to the floor of the most challenging target ever landed upon in Mars.
You just have to see these videos. 6 cameras were used to capture the key events.
We have confirmation that the lander vision system has produced a valid solution and part of terrain relative navigation.
Rhyming.
NASA says the video, and the landing, of course, is an example of the agency at its best.
In case you haven't seen it, we'll put them on our Facebook community page, of course. Now, as a reminder, the Perseverance rover is a special vehicle designed to move across the harsh, freezing terrain of Mars, and it's on a mission
to search for ancient life on the red planet.
Yes, that's right. And while we're on the subject, bonus points if you can tell me what perseverance actually means.
Okay, tenacity. Never giving up, despite difficulties or failing. to just keep going.
Yes, ma'am. And guess what? You can tune in to hear what that perseverance on Mars sounds like, as the team has managed to get a microphone operating on the ground as well.
Speaking of the team, we have to mention someone special.
Yes, we do. India is quite proud of Indian-American Dr. Swati Mohan, the voice you've been hearing from the mission, and the one who first confirmed that the rover had landed.
That's confirmed. Perseverance safely on the surface of Mars, ready to begin seeking the signs of past life.
She's been with the mission since the beginning and made history last week when she calmly steered the controls and landing system of the rover, navigating the difficult touchdown while the world watched. So, Leela, random question for you.
Okay.
What do oceanographers need to study the ocean?
A bathing suit?
Well, yes, but I mean, if you want to explore underwater for hours, what do you need? Okay, here's a clue.
Oh, air! I mean, oxygen, scientifically speaking.
Yes, humans cannot live without air or oxygen, and it's the same story for astronauts exploring space.
Naturally. That's why they have big, bulky spacesuits with oxygen tanks.
Or cords pumping oxygen to them from their spaceship. But what if oxygen could be produced on Mars?
Whoa, is that even possible?
Well, let's find out from our correspondent and news podcaster in his own right, Ezra Graham.
Take the stage, Ezra.
Thanks, Leela. So you might remember a few weeks ago when this happened.
That's confirmed. Perseverance safely on the surface of Mars, ready to begin seeking the signs of past life.
The Perseverance rover landed on Mars to look for signs of ancient life. But did you know what was also on board? A special device about the size of a bread box called
Mars Oxygen In Situ Resource Utilization Experiment,
or MOXIE for short. But I like to call it the breath box, because it's about to start testing if it's possible to make oxygen in situ, that means on site, using the local red planet resources. Mars's thin atmosphere is made up mostly of carbon dioxide, about 96% in fact. Well, MOXIE basically would act like a tree, inhaling carbon dioxide but exhaling oxygen. How cool is that? Instead of lugging the 100,000 pounds of oxygen needed from Earth to Mars, MOXIE would be able to produce oxygen directly on Mars. Much more efficient. That's not all. MOXIE could also help to propel rockets, because when hydrogen and oxygen are mixed together, they create a powerful propellant used in many present-day spaceships. Wouldn't it be easier if oxygen was available on Mars? That's what MOXIE's on a mission to find out. From Montana in the United States of America, I'm Ezra Graham reporting for Newsy Jacuzzi.
Thank you so much, Ezra. Remember when NASA's engineers called the landing of the rover Perseverance on Mars back in February 7 minutes of terror because it took that long for it to land safely?
Oh, yeah.
Well, imagine waiting 3 hours to know if your Martian mission was a success.
Ouch.
That's what just happened with a little bitty helicopter, or really more like a drone, the size of a cat, called Ingenuity, which just took off into the skies of Mars. It might have just been a 40-second trip, but it's made history. Bum, bum, bum!
It might have been a small trip for Ingenuity, but it was a giant leap for mankind.
That's one small step for man.
That sounds familiar.
One giant leap for mankind.
Because while humans have been flying in machines around the Earth for over 100 years, it's a totally different thing on Mars, where the gravity and air aren't what we're used to.
And the atmosphere is super thin on Mars, right?
Yep, and that means the helicopter rotors had to spin much faster than they do on Earth. 2,500 rotations per minute, in fact, just to stay up.
Meanwhile, good old Percy, the Perseverance rover, then took pictures of Ingenuity who I like to call Judy, on its first flight. And a satellite on Mars beamed that back to Earth, which took 3 hours.
So while Ingenuity, Judy, only went 3 meters high and just for 40 seconds,
there are more trips planned.
Yep, not only is this the first time humans have achieved the miracle of flight on another planet, but having succeeded in the first test flight, there will be 4 more. If they're successful, then future Mars explorations could include aircrafts.
So these flying robots could be like scouts, going ahead of rovers and astronauts to see if the terrain is safe for them to explore?
Bingo!
Cool! And by the way, in case you've forgotten, ingenuity is a fancy word for being inventive and resourceful in a creative, original way. Something ingenious people do. Get it?
Or in the words of the Alabama high school student, Vanessa Rupani, who suggested the name in a competition to NASA, ingenuity is what allows people to accomplish amazing things.
So Ingenuity is the perfect name, but Judy for short. The U.S. government has finally agreed to look into UFOs, which are in our skies. While it's true in the real sense of the term, unidentified flying objects, unidentified just means we don't know what they are, right?
Okay, that's true, although you know the phrase has changed now, right?
Yep, UFO was so last century.
So are flying saucers.
Oh yeah! Exit flying saucers and UFOs and enter UAP as an unidentified aerial phenomena.
That's right, that's what the U.S. military wants to call it now. And phenomena means what?
Remarkable things that don't always have to have a clear explanation. So just because we call it UAP doesn't necessarily mean it's an extraterrestrial being, otherwise known as an alien. Beep, bop, bop. Though it could be.
It could be, but while UFOs, now UAPs, are often assumed to be aliens, especially in pop culture, they're really just, as you said, any flying object that can't be classified as a known aircraft. So they could be new technology. Or a spy craft from foreign countries. Or maybe even an optical illusion.
No fun.
I'm just saying we don't know.
But several U.S. Navy pilots say they've seen the same thing flying in the sky repeatedly. So it could be visitors from another world.
Could be. Look, there's no denying that whatever they are, the U.S. government is now openly taking them seriously. See, interest in unidentified flying objects by the military, which is in charge of national security, isn't really new, but it's always been secret.
What's called classified information, as in unavailable to the general public.
Exactly. But then in April last year, the U.S. Department of Defense openly released 3 videos showing what it described as UAPs seen and filmed by some of its Navy fighter pilots. The objects were unusually shaped, flying at high speeds, moving around in ways that baffled aeronautic experts, and had no visible propulsion or propellers keeping it up.
But that's not all, right?
Right. 2 of the pilots said as their jets approached the mysterious object to take a closer look, it began to mirror their jet's movements. Then, when the pilot got to within half a mile of the UAP, it suddenly vanished.
It's gotta be aliens.
Well, these Navy pilot videos that defy explanation have certainly sparked some questions and concern. Whether the sightings are from foreign spies or...
Beep, bop, 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 beep, 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 bop, bop.
Yes, either way, the government should know. So in December, U.S. senators asked the Department of Defense to investigate the UAPs and deliver an unclassified report, that means open to the public, to Congress within 6 months, which is almost up.
So, the report is due sometime in June?
That's right.
I can't wait.
You and a lot of other people.
This is a story where art meets science. Up in space, to be precise.
Oh, okay.
Get this. Russia is about to shoot a movie in space.
Whoa, you mean not like on a set that looks like space?
Nope. According to Russia's Roscosmos Space Agency, it's actually going to be on the International Space Station, which, as I'm sure most of our listeners know, orbits our Earth 220 miles out in space.
Astronauts are going to be actors in space? Talk about moonlighting.
No, real actors are going to go to space, not astronauts acting like actors. And by the way, astronauts in Russia are called cosmonauts, in case you didn't know.
Thank you. But what if they don't know anything about space?
Well, they've already chosen the 2 actors, camera director and overall director, who are going to be extensively trained in a zero-gravity plane and undergo parachute training, amongst other things. Whew. No fair. I wish I could go on a zero-gravity plane. Anyway, they've also already titled the movie, which is going to be called Challenge. And the first bit of filming will happen as early as October.
Whoa, so this is going to happen before that space hero reality TV show that the U.S. company Axiom Space is hoping to produce in 2023, which we reported on in February.
Right. And did you know, Axiom have also teamed up with the Discovery Channel for a series they're calling Who Wants to Be an Astronaut? But while Axiom has signed a Space Act agreement with NASA, it's not clear if any of the winners will actually go into space or just be trained for the mission.
Huh, okay. But anyway, it still sounds like a new space race is brewing. Which country will be the first to put TV stars in space? Russia or America? Space.
Space? You want more space? Here, let me move over then.
No, well, kinda. I mean, this week there's so much space news. We could do the entire episode on it.
Awesome! I love, love, love space!
But we don't have the, well, you know, space.
I get you now. Okay, so should we talk doubly fast? Alvin and the Chipmunk style? Now there's an idea, but maybe, well, an annoying one, though.
Let me just be succinct or compact and brief as possible. Okay.
All right, you got this. On your mark, get set, go!
First up, NASA has announced 2 new missions to study the lost habitable world of Venus, our nearest neighbor, sometimes called Earth's evil twin.
Yikes, why?
Well, it's now one of the hottest, most inhospitable places in our solar system, and yet it has so many characteristics similar to Earth. Scientists reckon it may have been the first habitable world in the solar system. The new billion-dollar missions could set out as early as 2028 to find out how Venus became an inferno.
Awesome! What's inferno?
A big, nasty fire.
Oh, geez. Anyway, what's next?
Well, NASA has a mission to Jupiter that's underway with its Juno spacecraft recently zooming past its icy moon, Ganymede, which also happens to be the biggest moon in our solar system and has its own magnetic field.
Like Earth.
Exactly. That's what makes this flyby so interesting. Next, NASA has just sent hundreds of worms and baby squid up into space.
Obviously. Wait, what? Why?
To the International Space Station, to be exact. It's part of research into how to stop human muscles from becoming weaker in space. You see, the worms, known as Cenohabditis elegans, share a lot of characteristics with us humans.
Really?
Yep. So they'll be monitored to see exactly what molecules cause muscle decline in space and whether targeting these with medicine or other interventions will help.
Well, that makes sense. Anything else?
Oh, yeah. It's not just NASA news. The European Space Agency, known as ESA, also has big plans. First up, it's sifting through hundreds of applicants who have significant physical disabilities in a big drive to broaden its talent pool for space exploration.
Oh, cool. Like they'll go up into space?
Well, possibly, but no specific mission or launch date has been determined just yet.
Whew, that's a lot of space news.
And we haven't even gotten to the best one yet.
What?
Well, let's cut to Jackson Hosking, our tech correspondent in England, who's closer to the story.
Okay, Jackson, what do ESA have in mind?
Well, Leela, recently ESA held a competition to explore ways to create renewable energy on Mars. Because if astronauts were ever to set up a camp on Mars, they would need a constant energy source that wouldn't run out, right?
Exactly.
So, scientists all over Europe got their thinking caps on. Since Mars is further than the Sun from our planet Earth, solar energy is clearly not the best solution. These researchers banked on something else instead. Something that Mars has plenty of, and that is gusts of wind. Yeah, apparently it's really windy on the red planet. Who knew?
I got it, Jackson. The solution would be wind turbines on Mars.
Not a bad idea, but they would be way too heavy to transport on a rocket to Mars. Think about it. What's relatively light in materials and great in the wind?
Ooh, sails like on a yacht.
Very close. Now, think of something even lighter. Something you may have flown on the beach.
A kite?
Yes, that's it. The researchers at the Delft University of Technology in the Netherlands came up with the idea that massive kites with a surface area of up to 50 square meters. That's like the size of 3.5 parking spaces. And here's the really fun bit. These kites would be controlled by robots. They'll have cables attached to spindles or drums, and as they unspool, they turn, creating energy. Teamed with other solar energy sources, could create enough energy for a small Martian base camp. So, there you go, Leela. Proof that with a bit of clever thinking and inspired by the things around us, there is no limit to what we can achieve, even beyond our own planet.
Love it, Jackson. This proves that expression, the sky's the limit.
That's true. Thanks a lot, Jackson. This is a story about the ordinary becoming extraordinary.
Yup, everyday people like you and me being able to go up, up, and away into space.
Yes, 4 amateur astronauts have splashed down successfully in the Atlantic Ocean after a trip to space. Of course, this wasn't the first time non-astronauts have headed up, up, and away.
Though it's mostly been billionaires hopping aboard space rockets or building their own for trips into space lately.
Yes, and being billionaires, they're not exactly everyday people.
But they're not astronauts either.
No, but that's not all. When Amazon's Jeff Bezos went into space, it was only for 3 minutes, and Virgin Air's CEO Richard Branson was at a slightly lower altitude, but for 8 minutes.
But this time, private citizens, as in not astronauts, went into space for 3 days.
And at a much higher altitude than the billionaire-built rockets, and even higher than the International Space Station. Of course, we must say this team of ordinary astronauts are actually pretty extraordinary people.
So, for start, Inspiration 4, as the mission was called, did include, surprise, surprise, a billionaire.
Of course it did. And one who's long been interested in flying, having piloted several different kinds of airplanes. But Jarek Isaacman isn't just a rich space nut who wants to open up the market to tourists. He's also a pretty philanthropic guy.
Philo what?
A philanthropist is someone who promotes the welfare of others, not just themselves, mostly by giving lots of money to good causes.
But I thought this Isaacman dude just brought himself and 3 friends tickets to space.
Nope. The Shift 4 Payments guy, that's his company, gave 2 of the seats to a cancer hospital that treats children for free, St. Jude's, which held a massive fundraising raffle for one of the tickets and gave the other one to one of its hospital workers. Then Isaacman gave the 4th ticket to a winner of an entrepreneur competition, that's people who create their own businesses, who happened to be a college professor who was nearly chosen as a NASA astronaut 11 years ago.
That's useful.
Yes, even the raffle ticket spot went to a U.S. Air Force veteran. They might have been private citizens, but clearly they're all pretty sharp.
And they went on an intense astronaut training course for 6 months to help them prepare, right?
Yep, that's right.
And wasn't the hospital worker a childhood cancer survivor herself, who now has prosthetic bones in one leg? Pretty cool.
Yep, and at 29 years old, she's now the youngest American to go into orbit. And get this, they went into space in the same SpaceX Dragon capsule that usually carries NASA astronauts to the International Space Station.
They might not have gone to the space station, but they did circle Earth 15 times a day. I mean, how cool is that?
I know, and there's more. The door that normally docks or connects the capsule to the space station was replaced with a window. In fact, the largest window ever built for space.
What a view they must have had. Dreamy. Well, I might not have been old or lucky enough to go on that trip, but they sure are paving the Milky Way for people like me to go on one day.
Yeah, I guess we should say thanks. One of the biggest comets ever seen is making its way from the edge of our solar system towards us.
A huge icy body that orbits the sun with a fiery tail that looks like a comma is edging closer and closer.
It's so big, astronomers thought it was a dwarf planet when they first identified it, but closer analysis revealed it was moving way too rapidly through the Oort cloud for that.
The Oort cloud. What's that again?
That's a huge, distant region of space thought to hold trillions of icy bodies from the early solar system.
Oh, yeah. Isn't that also called a scrapyard of icy rocks?
Yeah, good one. So this object appeared to be headed our way, and it had a glowing tail.
Right. That's when the icy particles fly off the comet and turn into gas when it gets too close to the sun.
Exactly. So they realized it wasn't a dwarf planet, but a comet. A massive oval-shaped comet at least 62 miles or 100 kilometers wide and over 100 miles long.
What? Most comets are like a mile or two long. You know, the size of a neighborhood. But that's more like the size of a county.
Yeah, or even a small state.
But, how many years till this mega comet humongous beast comes close to Earth?
About 10 years or so.
What? 10? Only 10? Like in my lifetime? Panic!
Yeah, but don't worry. Even when the Bernard-Donnelly-Bernstein comet, named after the scientists who spotted it, gets as close to us as possible, it won't pose a threat.
Phew!
Yes, it'll make its closest approach on January 2031, when the massive icy body is expected to come within about 1 billion miles of the sun. That's roughly as far as Saturn is from us on Earth.
Oh, that's far. So we won't even be able to see it with our eyes?
Well, depending on how much gas the comet releases as its ices vaporize in the glare of the sun, it could get as bright in the night sky as Saturn's largest moon, Titan. If so, it should be visible with a decent backyard telescope in 2031.
It's interesting, but, it's not coming for 10 years, and then it's so far away you can only see it with a telescope.
Well, yes, it is a big deal, because as it gets closer, astronomers, with their huge telescopes, will get a right and proper good look at it. And because it's come from the Oort cloud,
the icy scrapyard from the beginning of the solar system.
Right. So imagine what a rich source of information that will be for our understanding of the world and the early solar system.
All right, you convinced me. Ever wondered what it was like to see a rocket, a real rocket, take off for outer space?
Astronauts headed for the International Space Station, to be precise.
I sure have. And I'm totally jealous of our Florida correspondent, Lonnie Power, who got to witness this with her own eyes herself.
But she didn't waste such a privilege.
Oh no. Like a good reporter, she took her equipment and recorded the whole thing.
On a very windy evening.
It's a gloomy and misty evening on the beach in Florida. Just about 16 miles away, that's 26 kilometers. 4 astronauts are preparing to leave the Earth and go to the International Space Station. This is actually my first time seeing a crewed launch, so I'm really excited and a little nervous. When they blast off shortly, they'll be taking a 22-hour flight to the ISS. The longest flight I've ever taken was about 15 hours, and that felt like forever. Their brand new Endurance spacecraft is carrying with it a bunch of cool experiments, one of which is bioprint first aid technology. So basically, they're using a bio 3D printer to make glowing band-aids. That's sticking plaster for those of you out of the United States, to see if it'll help speed up skin growth for minor injuries. If that works, the idea will be to print the patient's own skin cells. That's so awesome! Whatever happens on this flight, the results are sure to be out of this world.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. And liftoff.
Copy 1 Alpha. Laboratory in orbit. The International Space Station.
This is Lonnie Power reporting from Cape Canaveral for Newsy Pooloozi.
It's not every day that a rocket crashes into the moon.
Oh gosh, that doesn't sound good.
Well, believe it or not, it's not as unusual as you might think. Cue the music, Mama. Once upon a time, in 2015, a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket blasted into outer space. It was carrying none other than the Deep Space Climate Observatory satellite that tracks solar storms.
Well, we definitely need some climate observation, but who knew we'd be doing it from deep space?
Well, the second stage part of the rocket didn't have enough fuel to return to Earth. So it's been chaotically looping around Earth and the moon ever since. And apparently it's pretty common to abandon space junk in deep orbit. Luckily, an asteroid hunter's been keeping tabs on the 4-ton booster and realized it's gonna slam into the lunar surface on March 4th. Yes, that means a new crater for our lunar love. Sadly for space watchers, it's most likely to crash on the dark side of the moon, so it won't be visible from Earth. Drat.
By the way, did you know the dark side of the moon isn't really dark? It's just that we can't see it from Earth. But tell me, is this crash, dangerous for the moon?
Nope, according to astronomers, the moon is pretty routinely hit with large objects moving 10 to 20 kilometers per second. And the SpaceX rocket part will be traveling 3 times slower. Phew.
So folks, it's official. The International Space Station is set for retirement.
It's gonna go out with maybe not a bang, but definitely a splash.
Yep, after nearly 25 years circling the Earth,
zipping along 5 miles every single second,
and already circumnavigating the Earth 100,000 times.
Circumnavigating is a fancy word for going around something, by the way.
Thank you. Well, NASA is calling it a day.
Oh, not today. In 2031. So it's got nearly 9 years left of being our laboratory in the sky.
True, and it's been quite the cosmic crash pad for astronomers studying our skies, exceeding almost everyone's expectations by doubling its expected lifespan. And it's not going to take it easy waiting out retirement. Oh no. NASA says it's entering its most productive decade, staying busy with experiments undertaken both on behalf of researchers and private contractors.
Speaking of everyday astronauts and the private sector space race, Mama.
Yes, it'll be private companies which have the money and the know-how that'll most likely build the next generation space stations with the assistance of national space agencies like NASA, ESA, and ISRO.
You're talking about the European and Indian agencies, right?
Yes. That way, those space agencies can save a lot of money to spend on other missions.
Like heading back to the moon or Mars.
Quite possibly.
So how do they deorbit a huge space capsule? with massive solar panels spread out as wide as a football field anyway.
Well, the plan is for the space station to leave the Earth's orbit, causing it to fall back home safely and crash into the Pacific Ocean.
Crash?
Well, splash, technically.
Right, a splash landing sounds better to me. Hope they get all the boats and ships out of the way.
Well, actually, it's in an area in the South Pacific Ocean called Point Nemo. Nemo, which is Latin for no one. It's also known as the oceanic pole of inaccessibility, which is a fancy way for saying there's no human activity there for miles and miles and miles. In fact, it's not unusual for deorbited satellites to splash land there.
So it's like a space junk cemetery, the oceanic graveyard of inaccessibility. For satellites. Get it? Sad-alites.
Sad-alites. Very good.
Thank you.
If I say Saturn, what's the first thing that pops into your head?
That big planet in our solar system, pretty far from Earth, with those super sleek rings that make it stand out as the coolest looking planet in the Milky Way.
Yes.
With sunglasses.
Yes, and those rings might look sleek from afar, but they're actually rings or belts of ice, rock, and dust, which are slowly breaking apart and disappearing.
Uh-oh. Tragedy!
Yes. Well, maybe not that tune, okay? Luckily, it's a tragedy that won't happen for a while.
Not in our lifetime, huh?
Certainly not. But now scientists have a good idea when, and we're talking about 100 million years from now.
Phew!
But what's really interesting is just why or how these rings are vanishing.
Are they being sucked up by a distant black hole?
No, thank goodness, because, that wouldn't be good for us here on Earth either. So let's back up a second. Scientists don't actually know why Saturn's rings formed at all. The prevailing theory is that one of Saturn's older moons got too close to the planet and it started to shred into pieces.
That's just a hypothesis. An educated guess.
Right. What astronomers do know is that these rocky rings won't last forever because of something called ring rain.
Ring rain?
Yep, it's a destructive process by which parts of the belt are being sucked into Saturn by gravity and then vaporized.
Vaporized is in something solid like ring rocks, or even liquid for that matter, being turned into gas or vapor.
Bingo! And it's estimated that 10 tons of so-called ring matter is falling into Saturn every single second.
Wait a minute. So basically Saturn is eating up its own rings?
Well, you could put it that way, I guess.
Naughty Saturn. Sorry, but this is a tragedy.
Tragedy! When you lose control and you got no soul, tragedy!
I bet you didn't like that song.
Oh, the things I do for this podcast.
So you know how clever scientists are constantly looking at ways we humans can live in outer space. Like for years and years?
Yep, I have heard something about this once or twice.
Well, one way is finding out how to grow food in outer space.
Oh, like on a space station?
Like on the moon.
That barren hunk of rock? What could possibly grow there?
Space plants! Well, okay, not quite yet. But seeds that were put into soil brought back from the moon have sprouted. Let's call them space sprouts.
Whoa.
Yep, seriously, whoa, wow. Lonnie Power in Florida has the full report.
We grow a lot of plants day to day, from home gardens to big farms. What would you say, though, about growing them on the moon? Two scientists from the University of Florida Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences set out to find the answer. 11 years and 3 different Apollo trips to the moon later, they got some regolith. That's the fancy word for moon soil. 12 grams to be exact. Now, that's just about a tablespoon's worth of moon soil, which isn't much when you're trying to sustain life. But they made it work. How? Well, They divided up the soil, putting just 1 gram of the precious soil into its own little plastic cup. They planted seeds from the small flowering weed Arabidopsis thaliana, a relative of cabbage and mustard, since we know its DNA completely and can track any changes that happen to it. They also planted seeds in a recreation of lunar soil made here on Earth to see the difference. While the Arabidopsis did sprout in moon soil, it grew slightly smaller and slower than its artificial lunar soil counterpart, most likely because some of the dirt from the moon was exposed to cosmic winds, changing its makeup. They realized that these places weren't as good for plants as the spots with less exposure. Nevertheless, this is one small step for colonizing the moon, but one giant leap for space agriculture. With that, I'm Lonnie Power for Newsy Pooloozi.
Thanks a lot, Lonnie. There's nothing like a good space story to fire me up. And that brings us to the end of the special Newsy Pooloozi capsule. Alright then, we'll see you next week in the splishy splashy news spool for kids. Newsy Pooloozi.
And adults like it too.